So one of the greatest challenges that we have as meditators, if we're Buddhists, and possibly just being humans, is the question of what to do when we experience painful emotions, feelings and thoughts towards people we're finding a bit challenging. And it's really understandable that when we have an unpleasant experience, that our automatic response is to push that away. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense that we try and do that. But of course, I think if we reflect a little bit on our lives and what happens when we do that, we just kind of see that that kind of pushing away and the habits that we have around how we do that can often cause ourselves and other people more suffering. And we can get caught up in kind of cycles of unhelpful behaviour. Whether that's very strong reactions of anger and very kind of visceral hatred, unkindness towards other people, or just a kind of a sort of low-level irritability and impatience or avoidance of other people. It can kind of colour our whole experience in interaction with the world around us. So what's the way out of getting caught up in those habits and those cycles of how we respond to difficulty? And that's what we're going to be exploring this evening. So welcome to the Monday night live stream meditation class for the Brixton Buddhist community. My name is Charlotte and I'm one of the teachers here. Very warm welcome to you, and do go on to the chat function if you're tuning in. And in a few moments I'll do some shout outs to find out who's joining us this evening. And also don't forget to click the subscribe and the alert buttons, particularly if you're watching this in the future, so you can follow our events in the future. So you might notice that we're in a bit of a different location today. So we're on a bit of a journey to go back towards a kind of hybrid form of live, in-person classes back in Ephra space, which is where we used to do our physical classes way back when, before the lockdown, back in March, whatever it was. Yeah, so on a bit of a journey together. I'm feeling a little bit more kind of probably a little bit more nervous or something, just because there's been changes from moving out of the studio that we were in at the Dana Prasada community. I'm joined by our technician Jack, who's sorting out all the live streams, and also Virinaga and Maitrina are around as well, so you'll probably be able to see them in a moment. We've got another camera at the back. And this is getting piped to you from Ephra space. And then over the next kind of few weeks, we're just going to be working out our kind of different systems to get to the point where a few people can start signing in to come in physically and join us physically. But we'll keep doing like a hybrid form of in-person. Some people being here in person and social distancing, and also getting live streamed to you at home if you can't join us. Yeah, so do bear with us as we're trying to work out all the kind of new systems and things. Jack has very valiantly stepped up to take on this role as technician as well. So yeah, we'll be working that out as we go along. Great. So so this is the fifth session of this 6-week meditation series on the Metta Bhavana. So that's a practice that looks to overcome hatred by developing loving kindness towards all beings. And in this session, we're going to be exploring I always get confused with my stages, the 4th stage of the practice. So if you're joining this and you're totally new to the practice, in the different stages of the Metta Bhavana, we traditionally do it in 5 stages. In each of the stages, we bring to mind a different person, starting with ourselves, then a friend, someone we don't know, and in this 4th stage, someone that we're having some difficulty with. That's traditionally called the enemy, or the difficult person. So that's our kind of diving off point for tonight, for exploring and going a little bit deeper in this practice. Just to sort of say that actually I think this is a lifelong practice. It's a practice that can radically transform ourselves. So there's only so much you can kind of cover in a kind of short session. I think particularly about this stage, I think there's so much richness in understanding ourselves and our relationships with other people, and what we kind of bring to our interactions with them. So for me, sometimes I think this is kind of really the heart of the meditation, the heart of the Metta Bhavana practice. So it takes some courage and it takes some patience, and it takes practice. It takes coming back again and again, working with this stage on the meditation cushion, but also exploring these dynamics in ourselves and with other people off the cushion as well, in our lives, and how we interact with our friends, our family, our colleagues, and other people around us. Yeah, so maybe I'll just go along and say hello to whoever's popped in the chat. So just bear with me while I pull that up, and then we'll do a little bit of a meditation practice together. Oh, so we have Zenobi. Hello, Zenobi. Nice to have you here. And Lynn and John from Trowbridge. Tara. Pam. Hello, Pam. We've also got Ian and Debs in Brixton too. Hey, Debs. And Lee as well, or Leah in Herne Hill, Amy, and Trotter D, who I'm not sure. Oh, maybe that's Sarah, and Giannis too from Wandsworth Common. So yeah, welcome, very much welcome to you tonight. And yeah, do drop me a message in the chat function, and I'll give a shout out to you as well in a moment. So one kind of the main kind of focuses for the practice. I'm trying to remember to look around at these guys while I'm talking. It's a bit different, just not talking to the camera the whole time. There's real people here this time. So one of the things we're going to be exploring this evening, and I think that we've been kind of trying to draw out through the series, of the importance of staying with our body with this experience. And yeah, particularly in this practice, I think it's very easy to kind of come out of when we're sort of encountering someone we're having a bit of difficulty with. We can very quickly come out of our experience in the body and start getting into kind of stories or yeah, kind of thoughts about the person and our dynamic with them. And yeah, and also just we can just be quite blocked, I think, in our bodies around what we're actually feeling in relationship to that person. So I'll say a bit more about that in a little bit, but the first thing that we're going to do together is a bit of a body awareness practice so that we can just land a little bit more tonight and yeah, start exploring the landscape of sensations and feelings in our body. Yeah, so all you need to do is just get set up in your meditation posture. These guys are looking pro. It's quite nice. We've got proper cushions and mats here. It's quite nice to be back using these. And yeah, so you're probably sat on your sofa or maybe a chair at home. So just get yourself comfortable. And making sure that you've got mainly having 3 points of contact with the ground or with the chair, so that your feet are flat on the floor maybe. You're not crossing your legs if you're sat in a chair. And when you're ready, just closing your eyes. Just feeling, what does it feel like to start to draw your awareness inwards? What do you immediately notice in the body? And when we first turn inwards, we can just feel a little bit numb or just notice a lot of tension. I find it really helpful when we start to meditate just to take a few deeper breaths into the body and really allowing it to work its way all the way down into the belly, and a deeper breath out. So in your own time now, just taking 3 or 4 deeper breaths in and out. It can be quite helpful to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. And on the next out breath, just imagining that any tension, concerns you've got out from the day, just easing their way out of your body and your mind. Now noticing the contact of your body with whatever you're sat on. So particularly your weight dropping down through your sitting bones, into the buttocks, the backs of the legs. You can feel this weightiness of the body. You want to trace along the points of contact along the back of the legs and down to the feet. And sometimes we can feel very shut off from the body, so you might want to even give your toes a little bit of a wiggle, just to notice where they are in relation to the rest of the body. Now noticing any particular points of tension or anything that you might feel is a bit unpleasant in the body. So it might be tightness or more acute pain. Just start exploring, what does that area of the body actually feel like? So what are the contours? Are there edges to the unpleasant feeling? If it's a bit more of a pain, does the pain come in and out, or is it quite constant? When we bring our awareness to areas of discomfort in the body, sometimes even just noticing the part of the body just naturally wants to relax and ease. I can feel it in my belly. Just feel the stomach unfurling and releasing. Sometimes with more acute sensations, we just need to stay with them. Acknowledging that there's discomfort right now. As we're breathing in, you could imagine that kindness is coming into our bodies through the in-breath. It's going to that area of the body where there's discomfort. And on the out-breath is just easing the muscles, helping us to relax. Now seeing if there's any pleasant sensation in the body. So you might notice if that area has just released a bit, that there is warmth and energy there now. I can feel that in the belly. There's a sense of relief, of being relaxed. Perhaps noticing what it feels like in the hands or the feet, somewhere that feels stable, energized or pleasant. Might just be the simple sensation of breathing in and out. So we can notice that along with discomfort in the body, there can also be pleasure, or at least a sense of ease. Now taking a few moments just to notice, where do we feel the breath most in the body? Perhaps in the chest or the throat or the belly. And just following those sensations as they rise and fall in that area. Expanding your attention to take in as much as the body as you can now. Notice what sensations are flowing in and out of our awareness. Expanding out to include our experience of the other senses, so sounds around us, light coming through our eyes, aware of other people in the room, or in the building with us, or outside. Just letting that be there. In a moment or two, I'm just going to ring the bell, but just for now, have a moment, not doing anything at all before we close the practice. And when you're ready, opening your eyes and maybe coming out of your meditation posture if that's a bit more comfortable for you, just to save your legs. Great, and I'll just go over to the chat and give a few more hellos. So Alex B is here as well, and Jill from Gypsy Hill, and also Vicky and Joe as well. Oh, hey Joe, nice to see you here too. Yeah, a few people saying it's good to see Afrospace again. It's good to see Afrospace again. And a sense of the kind of like wider community around us as well. I don't know if you can hear this, but there's some people out behind us having a good time tonight, so I hope they're enjoying themselves too. Yeah, so being with the body with the unpleasant sensations. So one of the things I've sort of been reflecting on more and more is that the content of our relationships that we might find difficult, whether that's an interaction with someone at work, a loved one, someone that we meet in the street, whatever the kind of actual content of that kind of dynamic is, and the particularities of it. We can just get to know the landscape of our bodies and how we respond to those situations a bit better. So as my good friends will know, I have what my friend Vajratara describes as a habit of anxiety. And we all just kind of know, I just get a bit nervous, don't I? I mean, like, people are laughing about this. It's true, I just get a bit nervous. Like, we're on the way here, and Maitranara was asking me, like, oh, how are you doing? And I was like, oh, I feel a bit nervous. I just get a bit nervous. But it doesn't, that kind of, those sensations in the body I can get familiar with and learn to have just a bit of more confidence, I guess, and more kind of trust that I can sit with those unpleasant sensations in the body. So I think this is really key when we're bringing to mind someone that we're finding a bit challenging and a bit difficult in this meditation practice. Is that the first thing that we really need to do is come into relationship with ourselves and our own bodies. It's very easy to kind of skip that. I think it's really helpful, we'll do this later on, but I think it's really helpful to slow down this stage quite a lot. So sometimes if we're doing a shorter practice, like we might only have a few minutes on this stage, and a lot can happen, can't it? Like you bring someone to mind, there's a whole kind of backstory to why you've decided then they're going to be in the fourth stage, and you've got to come into your body, you've got to imagine them, then you've got to come into your body, and then you've got to like wish them well. There's quite a lot to do. So I think it's good to kind of break it down and spend a bit more time kind of really looking at the sensations that are coming up for us in the body before we kind of do anything else. And I guess it's just good to remember that this needs to be the foundation. So mindfulness in the body is the real kind of foundation to this practice. Because if we can't be in touch with what's actually going on for us, and the kind of habitual ways that we try and push people away, or that kind of, it's just even just pushing that unpleasant experience in our body away, if we can't sort of be aware of what's actually happening, it's very kind of difficult to respond in a way that's kind of a bit more creative and not kind of just following those patterns that are a bit unhelpful for us. So that's got to be the foundation, really. And yeah, I'll just say a little bit more then about kind of being with unpleasant sensations in the body during this stage. So yeah, the first thing is just kind of remembering that we are kind of building up a kind of skill and a capacity to kind of, I guess, just be a bigger vessel that can hold more kind of difficult experiences in the body. So that means that we just need to be a little bit discerning in terms of like who we choose to pop in that stage. So although it's kind of traditionally called the enemy stage, actually it's probably quite unhelpful when we're starting to learn how to do this practice. Or even in some other circumstances actually, to choose someone that we're finding actually incredibly challenging. Mainly because it's just very easy to get overwhelmed quite quickly, and the meditation can get derailed. So instead of trying to cultivate love and kindness, next thing we know, we've kind of had 5-10 minutes of just kind of getting really kind of cross and grumpy, and by the end of it, yeah, we're probably feeling worse about the situation than we did before. So yeah, we need to sort of choose someone we're learning to do this where there's something that's kind of live and a bit, I think Viranag uses this word, you two seem to use the word fruity recently quite a bit when we talk about experience. I don't know, but a bit fruity, I think that might be in Maitrenarism. So there's something kind of like live or kind of like active to work with. There's something there. I don't know, I might just be making this up, but it's something we said recently. So there's something kind of there in our experience to work with. But just being aware that we might, yeah, there might be certain interactions that we've had or people that we might bring into that practice where actually we just get really overwhelmed. And yeah, it's just good to know. Yeah, we're just trying to learn. We're just trying to learn a kind of technique at the moment that might be helpful for us. And I think, yeah, also just sort of talking to people who've had some sort of quite traumatic experiences maybe pop up in their meditation when they've been at classes. I remember a few years ago now, there was a young woman at the LBC, the London Buddhist Centre in Bethnal Green. I was teaching one day, and she started having a panic attack basically when she was meditating, and we went and had a bit of a chat about that. Afterwards, she came up and talked to me, which I was really pleased she did actually. Just she hadn't realised she was having probably what was a panic attack. She talked about this kind of experience that was very overwhelming for her, and her breath getting very, very tight. So we had a good chat about, you know, what to do when something a bit kind of overwhelming kind of comes in that you didn't expect. And it's fine, you know, if that happens, you can, you know, kind of maybe come out of the meditation, open your eyes, or maybe go back into the stage of working with a good friend. So yeah, so we're just being a bit intelligent about who we're bringing into this stage with us, depending on what's kind of going on for us at the moment. And then it's also really important to build up a kind of foundation of positivity. I think if you come at this stage when you're just like in a really, really bad mood or just feeling incredibly low, that can be quite challenging. So I think doing the stages, and particularly doing the stage where you're bringing to mind a good friend, is really important because it kind of bolsters us a bit for working in that in this stage. And well, I guess just reminds us that there's you know, our experiences can be quite varied. It's very easy to get kind of focused on difficulty we're having, but you know, that often there's as well as having, you know, some challenges in our lives with particular people, there's often, you know, joy and friendship in there as well, even with the person that we might be bringing into that fourth stage. Yeah, so making sure that we've got kind of foundational basis of kind of positivity going in to that stage as well, and kind of really drawing on the second stage of the practice to help with that. And then the third thing I wanted to say, kind of sort of around this area of being with unpleasant sensation. Well, I think there's loads that we could, but one of the things I have to really watch out for is a kind of tendency to bypass. And I think part of what does that mean? I think it's kind of not, maybe it's sort of going into the part of the practice where we're kind of wishing someone well before we've kind of really recognised actually how we're doing. Yeah, there's lots of reasons I think why it can be difficult to kind of touch in with that. I think, like I said before, time is one of them, making sure that we've got enough time to kind of just actually explore what's going on, particularly if we've been quite busy, we might not be aware of what's happening. And also, I think we can bring a lot of kind of ideas about kind of who we are and what makes a good meditator and a good Buddhist to this part of the practice, where we have this idea that we don't get annoyed, we don't get angry, you know, lots of kind of shoulds about the kind of person that we think we are, and we're not sort of kind of honest with actually what's going on. So I think that can happen, is that we can have this idea that that we shouldn't be kind of having certain sensations or certain kind of feelings about someone, and then we can cut off from that. Let me just have a little bit of a drink. And I think the other thing to watch out for with bypassing is that this is related. I haven't quite made the link in my head, but well, anyway, we'll go with it. So working with unpleasant sensation in the body and kind of like taking responsibility for our own mental states doesn't mean that we kind of get really passive in our lives. I think that's really important to know. We don't sort of avoid maybe having some difficult conversations that we might need to, or perhaps even changing the conditions that we're in that might be leading to the arising of some of this difficulty. I remember a few years ago, some of my friends will know if they're tuning in, that I was working in social housing and it was mad. I was living with Viranaga for a time. It was just, that job was mad, wasn't it? I just probably shouldn't have been doing it. And I had no experience in working properly with people who had, kind of a lot of suffering in their lives. I was working in a kind of extra support team, so people who had like long-term mental health issues, addiction, that sort of stuff. And over time I was just kind of ignoring what was actually going on in my body, and probably part of this bypassing had this idea that I just needed to find a way of being a better person, working better with my mental states, and somehow I'd deal with the difficulty at work. And actually I just got really sick, and I noticed that a load of people around me in the office were also getting really sick, and we were trying to sort of talk about it, but basically got to this point, I remember this really clearly, that I was just sat on the floor in the kitchen of our flat up in Crouch End, and I just couldn't go into work. I just sat on the floor. I thought, I just can't do it today. I cannot go in. And I was getting all this kind of I was getting really, really bad stomach pain, to the point that I almost passed out one day in Tesco's going to get some painkillers, and actually threw up in their pharmacy from the pain that I was in. And it started to dawn on me that maybe Viranaga was right. And that maybe I just shouldn't be doing this job. So I got into kind of communication with people at work, had a bit of time off, but actually what I needed to do is just change the circumstances that I was in. And I guess I just want to bring that in because it's a bit of a... I think one of the things that we can do is we can, it's really important to take responsibility for our mental states, but also just notice where actually we might need to make some changes around us if we can, if we're causing ourselves a lot of harm through being in a particular set of circumstances in relation to people who might be finding incredibly difficult. There's lots that was really lovely about my tenants, but there was a lot of anger and a lot of, just a lot of suffering actually I just didn't really have the tools to deal with at the time. And sometimes we might need to step out of those circumstances for a while at least to kind of look after ourselves and work out what we might need to change about our lives to improve our mental states. So that's quite a bit about the body and being in the body, and sort of just some kind of reflections around it. And the other thing I want to look at for the next kind of few minutes is around thoughts. So when we bring someone to mind, we've got some stuff goes on in our body, and also there's a bunch of thoughts that might come in, and they might be sort of quite conscious. Or they might just kind of be sort of general, sort of unconscious stories that we've got about that person. And what's really important to kind of recognise is the thoughts that we have can cause us a lot of suffering. And if we become more aware of our thoughts and start to kind of inquire about the truth of them, or whether or not our thoughts are kind of contributing to our suffering, actually... our relationship with that person, with ourselves in this stage can start really radically changing. So when we have a sort of interaction that we might find a bit challenging, very quickly we'll interpret the experience in a particular way, often based on past experiences we might have had with totally different people. And we'll start kind of labelling ourselves and the other person very quickly. They did this, or I did that. We can get very, very fixed very quickly about a situation, start allocating blame, have a very clear sense of what we think is the truth about what happened, what is happening, and why we're suffering at the moment. And what could be helpful is just to start broadening out and questioning, well, how true is the story that I have about this situation? What is really going on? And to check it out. So a good friend of mine, Vajratara, she's one of the best things, the most helpful thing she does is, well, there's lots she does that's very helpful, but one of the things that I've been working on more recently is just going and checking something out with someone. Often, I'll have a very quick story and start getting, just very quickly have a whole proliferation of thoughts about what's happening and all this kind of stuff that will kind of go on. And actually, if I go and check it out with someone, often can happen that it's just not true. And I've kind of, there might be kind of an element of something in the dynamic, but often what's happened is I've just made this whole kind of big story and kind of had a whole kind of response around it. But if I go and ask, go and check out what's actually going on for that person, it might be that nothing that I thought about it was actually particularly accurate. And then you have this kind of funny feeling of like, oh, I had all these like feelings I thought were like really true about the situation, and then you've got to kind of find a way of letting them go a little bit. And maybe accepting that you might just have been a bit wrong or not had the kind of biggest perspective you could have had about the situation. So just checking out what are the thoughts that we have about this person that we're bringing in. I think even just labeling them as the difficult person, as a kind of enemy, immediately kind of narrows down on them. It kind of focuses in on something that happened with them that we found difficult. It also makes them the difficult person in relationship to me. Sometimes I find it helpful to think about maybe I might be their difficult person at the moment. That can often change the dynamic and help me to kind of take a bit more responsibility for what I'm bringing to the situation as well, looking at my role. And then I think also there's something can be really radical about just trying to hold the biggest, like what's the biggest perspective that we could hold that's possible. And there's this really wonderful poem by a person who I hope is called Czesław Miłosz. Vajratara taught me how to say his name today, Czesław Miłosz. And the start of that poem goes, I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called The Weighing. And the start of it goes, the heart's reason seen clearly, even the hardest will have its whip marks and sadness and must be forgiven. So it's the heart's reason seen clearly, even the hardest will have its whip marks and sadness and must be forgiven. And what I take from that kind of the start of that poem is this sense of, we're all sort of conditioned, so even people who might be acting in a way that is causing us and other people quite a deal of suffering, that rises in dependence on conditions. I know this because I do this all the time. I haven't slept well, haven't been meditating, bit hormonal. There's a whole bunch of conditions that come together. Stuck on my own in lockdown, been living on my own, not very good mental states. There's a bunch of conditions that can come together that can lead towards me acting out. And of course, I need to take responsibility. But there's a bunch of conditions that kind of contribute to that. And if we can notice that for themselves, we also need to notice that for other people. They'll probably be suffering in their own way too, if they're acting in a way that's causing some harm to themselves and others. And they too will have had a whole bunch of conditions that we won't really kind of know and understand that will have contributed to that. And when we can hold that much kind of bigger perspective, what happens, I think from my experiences, there's almost like a loosening, or I keep having this image lately of working with Jenga blocks. So it's a bit like, hopefully everyone's played Jenga. So you have like all these blocks that are kind of built up. And quite often what we can be doing in practice is just kind of taking the Jenga tower down like one block by one block through like bringing the person to mind, just kind of wishing them well. But I find if I can get to this level below, which is about the kind of stories that I create about people, the views I have about them, it's a bit like I pull out the blocks from a little bit further down the tower, and there's more kind of freedom kind of possible in the way that I relate to them. Maybe compassion will arise towards them as well if I kind of think, okay, maybe there might have been something going on for them as well at the moment. So we're going to do a bit of a practice now to kind of explore some of these areas, these areas of being much more in the body, staying with the body, really exploring our sensations in this part of practice. And then just having a bit of an inquiry, a bit of reflection around the kind of stories and thoughts that we have about the person that we're bringing in. And I'm drawing on a few different resources for this, and kind of my experience through like retreats and main practice. But one of the people I found really helpful is a woman called Byron Katie, who does something called The Work. There's a website called thework.com. And there's this whole kind of inquiry process basically around noticing the kind of thoughts you have that come up about someone, finding what's that kind of like one-liner, like, I don't like them at the moment because they have done X, Y, or Z. And then kind of starting to ask, well, is that true? Is that really true? Is that, and sort of there's different ways that Byron Katie kind of like frames doing this kind of inquiry. So I'm going to do a kind of shortened version of that kind of, well, just drawing on some elements of it. But yeah, I'd kind of encourage you, if you're interested, to go and explore that as one resource for you. And we'll basically just do a kind of 3-stage practice. So in the first, we'll bring to mind ourselves and just kind of noticing the sensations of our body and wishing ourselves well, as we would normally. Then we'll bring to mind a friend, kind of drawing out my point of making sure we're doing this practice on the basis of some degree of, or some foundation of positive emotion in the body. And I find one of the best ways to do that is just drawing to mind a good friend and maybe an interaction I've had with them recently that felt very pleasant. And then in the third stage, we'll be bringing to mind the difficult person. And as I mentioned, maybe just thinking a bit intelligently about who to bring to mind in that. Maybe thinking about a recent interaction that we found a bit difficult. It doesn't need to be, as I said, one that's kind of huge thing. It might just be someone we've been a bit irritable with or impatient with at work. And we'll just spend a bit of time exploring, well, what does that feel like in the body? When I bring them to mind, what happens? What gets tense? How do I kind of lock up and kind of pull away from my experience? Kind of relax a little bit more into that. And then we're going to start noticing what are the thoughts and the stories I have about this situation, about this person? What is it about them that I've decided means that they are the difficult person this evening? And then I'll lead us in a little bit of a reflection practice, just to start, just maybe creating a little bit of space around some of those thoughts that we do have, noticing how they can kind of contribute to a bit more suffering in us as well. And then we'll see where that goes. It's always a bit of an experiment doing this. I've known people who've had kind of like real revelations. I've had that that's kind of really shifted a dynamic with someone quite quickly. And sometimes nothing will feel like it's happened at all. But it's just kind of introducing something, I guess, just to kind of experiment and play with. So again, just getting set up in your meditation posture. And we'll, as I said, it's a kind of meditation with a bit of reflection at the end, but we'll do it in a kind of meditative way. And just finding your ground with your body, noticing the sensations of contact. And becoming aware of our breathing body, so the sensations of the breath as it expands and contracts. Noticing any particular areas of tension. Maybe noticing that area that we were feeling in the previous practice to see if we've tensed up there again. Just exploring the edges of that discomfort. Taking a few deep breaths in, allowing the breath to fill the body, expanding that area of discomfort. And with the out breath, allowing it to come out a bit more slowly, having a more sense of ease, allowing our weight to drop more fully into the ground. Just noticing how we're doing now, kind of overall emotional state. Might be feeling a bit sleepy or a bit wired. Just notice, overall how you're doing. Just connecting with the sense that we want the best for ourselves. We can wish ourselves well, so we can say quietly in our minds, "May I be well. May I be happy. May I be free from suffering." So setting this intention that throughout the practice that we're included. That we're not shutting off from our experience at any point. Noticing if there's any pleasure in the body now. What does that feel like? Now bringing to mind a recent interaction that we've had with a good friend. And choose something specific. So it might have been meeting up with someone at the weekend, might have been a phone call. Just see if you can bring it to mind as vividly as possible. So where were you? Who were you with? What was it about the interaction that you enjoyed? Notice what happens in the body. What sensations do you feel in response to that memory? Particularly anything that you could label as pleasant. And can you allow those sensations to perhaps grow in the body? Imagining that with the in-breath and the out-breath, It's expanding out through all the cells in your body. And we can wish that friend of ours well. So may they also be happy and free from suffering. Again, coming back to the body, what sensations can we feel? Where is there pleasure now in the body? Allowing the friend, the memory to fade. Just sitting with the body, with our body. So now thinking back perhaps to this week and just seeing if there's an interaction that we've had with someone that we know that's been a bit tricky. There's a whole kind of range of difficult emotions that we might feel. So it might be sort of quite obvious, like sort of more clear annoyance or anger with someone, that might have gone on for a while. Or it might just be quite subtle. It might be irritability or a bit of withdrawal from someone. Just an experience where a bit of us has gone, ouch. Might have been an interaction where we felt some anxiety. And again, see if you can just hone in on the kind of more specifics of that interaction with that one person. Where were you and what's your version of what happened? And to begin with, just noticing what's going on in your body right now. So where's maybe some unpleasant sensation that's come in? I've tightened in around the belly or the jaw. If you're like me, you'll have found a load more tension in the body as well. The forehead and the feet. There's this like sense of kind of bracing against what we've been experiencing. What does that actually feel like? Is that painful? Like we've done before when we're just exploring any kind of general tension in the body, just seeing if with awareness now on that part of the body, you might just naturally want to relax a bit more. Might want to breathe a bit more deeply. Breathing in and breathing out that tension. Now turning our minds again towards the other person. Just see if we can get a sense of what's the story that we're telling ourselves right now. It might be something like, I'm annoyed with them because, or I'm feeling, insert whatever your particular emotional response is, because they have done da 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 da. Just seeing what comes up. If nothing's come up yet, that's fine. Maybe just ask yourself again, what's the story I'm telling myself here? Again, noticing what's going on in your body right now. When you have those thoughts. I've certainly tensed up again in the same areas as before. Now you can just start asking yourself, well, is this true? Is this really true? Do you know for sure that this is what's going on? Maybe there's some freedom in just saying, I just don't know. Perhaps you could ask, is this true of that person all the time? Noticing what happens in the body. It's fine. You might not have anything going on at all right now. You might have got distracted. That's okay. Just keep coming back. And wherever you've got to with that, there's always more that you could do with this inquiry, but wherever you've got to with that, just seeing if you can just still wish that person well. So may they be well, may they be happy, and may they be free from suffering. So you might have had a sense that something's loosened around your views and your stories about the situation. Or you might still be feeling really annoyed, but whatever's going on in your mind, in your body, we can still see what happens when we decide to wish them well anyway. Dropping any effort you're making now, just sitting for a few moments before I ring the bell to end the meditation. Maybe just noticing your breath and the body. Sounds around you. When you're ready, opening your eyes and coming out of your meditation posture if that's what you want to do. Have a little stretch. Great. Well, I hope that's at least giving you something to kind of start exploring in your practice, particularly around staying with the body, exploring physical sensations in that stage. Then maybe just starting to have a bit of inquiry around the stories that you bring with working with that person in the meditation practice. So I'm just going to now talk to you a little bit about how we kind of need your help to keep running our activities here. So as I'm sure quite a few will know who are tuning in, at the moment we're doing a Dana appeal, so an appeal for your generosity or financial generosity every month. And each month we're trying to raise £2,000 so we can keep running all of our activities and expanding on what we're doing as well. And the team work really hard. They work really hard and manage to pull off things I just think sometimes aren't possible, but the impossible manages to happen, even with kind of few resources. And we do only have, yeah, it is a bit mad sometimes. And we actually only have 2 part-time people working for us actually, but we still managed to put on a lot. And obviously at the moment we're just taking a little bit of time to get set up with setting up activities in a way that's socially distant. But we really do with your support basically to help keep things running and to be able to grow in the future. And so far that we've raised for July, we've raised £968, and we've got a further £1,032 to raise for this month. So if I do this, Jack, I think it's his first time kind of doing it live, will hopefully raise the Dana-ometer. Yeah, good, thumbs up, excellent, Jack. So you can see hopefully how much we've been raising on our lovely Dana-ometer. Yeah, so we'd really appreciate if you could, after this session's finished, go to our website and make a donation. I think the link for that should be below the information on the live stream. You can find out a bit more about what this session was about and when it was running. Great, so I think the next thing that we've got running, I should have checked for the announcements, but I think the next thing is next Monday, isn't it? We don't have anything happening.
There's a Zoom tonight.
There's a Zoom tonight. I know we've got a Zoom tonight, but I'm talking about future. Okay, so next thing we've got another class will be next Monday. Me again for the final of this 6-week series. We'll be exploring the final stage of the Metta practice, where we're developing love and kindness for all living beings through space and time throughout the universe. So do join me for that. It's a kind of a pinnacle really of the vision of the practice. Yeah, but the next thing that's going to be happening shortly is at 8:45. We're going to be having a Zoom discussion for things that have kind of come out of this practice for you. And if you haven't joined us before for that, I'd really just encourage you to come along. You don't need to have anything particular to kind of say, but it's a nice kind of way of getting to know people a little bit more in the community and exploring what might be coming up for your in your meditation practice out of this tonight's session. I realised I should have checked in with people if there was anything else I needed to say at the end of this about classes. No, I don't need to say anything about classes. We'll let you know when there's something for us to tell you about how you can start joining in physically. When we are able to do that, we will be putting that out on our newsletter actually. So do make sure you go onto our webpage and sign up for the newsletter so we can keep you informed about the kind of transition process. Yeah. So thanks very much for joining us tonight and helping us through this kind of crazy journey of starting to go back to in-person classes. And yeah, we'd just really like to get the opportunity to thank the team as well. So Maichinara, Virinaga and Jack for coming in and helping us do that. And also for the guys who run Aerospace as well, who've been super helpful, and other people like Lisa as well, who've been talking to us about kind of health and safety and things like that too. Stay well, and we'll catch you next Monday, but also hopefully in 15 minutes at 8:45, go grab a cup of tea, and the link for the Zoom discussion should be in the either in the chat function, but it will definitely be in the kind of information under the live stream. Good, so see you soon.